What's going on? I'm going to do a little bonus round here on episode 78. Still got Matt Harnett on the line. I do really appreciate you staying for a couple more minutes so I can ask you this specific question because I know you've been in the business, and I'm just kind of curious as the latest news from the Spotify camp, and I just wanted to get your specific take on it. And for those of you who don't know, obviously the CEO came out and said, musicians have to. It's not enough to do an album every 3 to 4 years, which I'm in the that's bullshit camp, but because I'm an artist. But from your perspective, what is your take?
Well, listen, I obviously when something some kind of comment like that coming from the CEO of Spotify, I mean, I don't expect to hear anything else but that. You know what I mean? They're not, right. They're not going to come out and say, well, it's okay. You don't need to put out more music. You're good. What they're trying to do, I listen, they're trying to deflect, right? I mean, they know that the artists are underpaid, greatly. And just like anything, man, when it comes to hitting anyone's pocket, they're going to point the finger the other way. And that's what it comes down to, right? Now, listen, do I think, well, you would probably know this better than me. I mean, these days that they always say, a lot of musicians will say that they put out records to tour. Right? They don't tour for a record anymore. They put out records in order to tour, So I know this is just their way of trying to say, well, this is the way it works now. Well, if they're pulling the strings, sure. They're letting you know, like, this is the way we're doing it. Listen, I think it's bullshit too. I mean, putting out a record every, year. No, you can't. I mean, the music business is so different, right? If you would have told someone that maybe, 15, 20 years ago that, maybe you need to, put out a record every, a year earlier than you normally would. Okay, I can understand it. But these days, music doesn't, even when you tour, right? I mean, it. I mean, the money you're getting up front isn't that much. A lot of these venues are trying to take, money out of your merch that you're selling at the tables. So once again, man, they're always going to point the finger at the artist. So I wouldn't expect anything less from a fucking suit and tie guy at Spotify to come out and say something like that, especially the guy probably has never been in a band his whole life and has no idea what it entails, how hard it is to put together a record, how expensive it is to record it, to manufacture it, all that stuff. That also could be, though, one of the things that they're also pointing at the record labels and letting them know that too. You know what I mean? I don't think it's just directed at the artists. I think it's also directed at, labels saying like,
Well,
you over there.
They also want more people to listen to Spotify, so that's probably why they're saying we need more content, kind of sort of thing. And when I'm going with this is I won't risk my artistic integrity because I don't do this to make a fucking living. Okay, I can't make a living doing what I do, and I don't want to. I don't want this to be my job. This is not my job, and so I'm not going to risk that to pay somebody else's bills. I'm going to do it on my fucking time.
Yep. Well, the thing is, obviously we all know that one thing that in music these days is the attention span of the listener is so freaking short, right? I mean, you put out a record and 2 weeks later, 3 weeks later, that thing's considered like old already. You know what I mean? Because there's so much music. And sure, like you said, all they want is you to go, come on, yeah, keep putting more music on. But of course, because that just means more money for them, right? So they're, of course, going to, yeah, I mean, like I said, I mean, it's the thing about the music business in general is that, I think these days especially, is that because it's not as lucrative as it once was for not just bands, but obviously, yes, for people in the business as well, that that's what they're going to, that's just what they're going to say, man. They're never going to tell you, don't worry, we're going to pay you more money. We're going to whatever. I mean, the business, that's the reason why I hated the music business when I did do the label is because it is such a scummy way where you're trying to get money in a way off of someone's art. You know what I mean? Something you didn't create. You know what I mean? Even though you invest money in it, it's like, it takes a certain person. If you're a real true music fan, it's hard to really run a label and be and treating your artists fair while you're making a good living they are. It's really difficult to do. So they're always going to, be douchebags and put it right on the artist and tell you, yeah, come on, make more music so that, I can make more money off your fans. Absolutely. It's the music business is just one of those things. It's just one of those necessary evils. You know what I mean? We all hate it. It sucks. It's fun, but it sucks because of the, monetary, the way the monetary system works in it. You know what I mean? And, So yeah, like you said, these days, man, bands, like you said, who's really a full time musician? Everybody's got to have full time jobs. You know what I mean? It's different now. It's not like it was back then where you had to, you could sign a deal and be good. After putting out a record every 2 years and touring, you'd be okay. You could make a good living. It just can't happen anymore. And obviously, those guys don't know anything about the music business to even to make a statement like that. Yeah, it's pretty fucking silly.
Well, they know the music business all too well. I would say the complete opposite, but they don't know what it takes to make records or whatever, like at the time or whatever. So, but there are a few, full-time musicians out there. I mean, they're all suffering because of the what's going on in the world right now in 2020. And my next question, because you guys did an episode talking about Live Nation, but I didn't really get to hear your specific points. And when it comes to obviously they're deflecting all the responsibilities of the promoters, but they're doing it towards the bands and stuff. And is there a way to not play any Live Nation venues? Is it just become a monopoly so big that you can't even contain it anymore?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I mean, it's obviously I think Live Nation, because they give such the big advance, it's the main draw for why bands decide to go with them, is because they know they've got that big advance. You know what I mean? That's what, right? I mean, that's what I guess more, especially artists who are veteran artists who've been doing this a long time. They want that advance. So even though they know it's going to suck for the fans who got to pay more for the tickets, it's going to suck for the bands because they're not, it's going to come out of their pockets as well. It's yeah, I mean, it's, yeah, we've talked about Bob and Chris and stuff. We've talked about the Live Nation stuff, I mean, all the time. But the bottom line with them is, they're never gonna give, they're never gonna take it out of their own pockets. You know what I mean? It's never gonna come out of their pocket. Everything's gonna always go back on the musician, because they also know that with musicians, it's like it's either if you put it on them, it's like, okay, you either do this or you don't have a band anymore. And if you don't have a band anymore, well, there's going to be all these other guys over here who are going to want that too. I mean, they're ready and they're hungry. You know what I mean? They know that music's such an emotional attachment to people that they could prey on the emotions. You know what I mean? Is what it comes down to. They know that. They know that we live, like you said, they know that we live this stuff. I mean, they don't. They make a living off our passion. Just being, whether you're a musician or you're in the business itself. Doing something for it. They know that they could capitalize on your passion, because we'll probably, because we're so passionate about it, we'll probably go, okay, like you as a band, you'll probably suck it up even though you don't want to. You're not going to stop playing music, right? You're not going to stop putting out records because of that. You know what I mean? They just know you'll keep doing it. And they know that that's the I don't want to say weakness, but they know it's like sort of like they're like say to you, okay, if you don't like it, well, what are you going to do? You're going to stop playing music? That's it. It's such a fucked up thing, man. I know the music business, man, is it's just a very interesting beast,
But I guess, is there a way, in a perfect world, that it would be yes, but in our fucked up world, is there a way to, say, start something like a AEG or a Live Nation to compete without it getting swallowed by that specific fucking beast?
I mean, you're talking about like big conglomerates, man, big corporate dollars, for any little guy, to do something like that, you'll get bought out before you could even get even close to that sort of a level. You know what I mean? I mean, like there's what's the ones we've got up here? We've got Ticket Fly, I think's one, or there's some of them on top of my head, but some of these other, not Live Nation, but some of these other promoters and stuff. It's going to be hard for them to compete with that, because you're talking, I mean, just like anything, right? Any kind of big business, once you start making any sort of noise, what they come in is they come right in. They either try to buy you out. I mean, it's just, and this is just really business in general. I mean, not even just with music. A lot of businesses in general, it's like this. Once you show, I mean, I'll even look at, say, craft beer. Craft beer is always a business that's very, very similar to the music business. If you really look at it, how they market it and everything. And same with those breweries that come up, okay, that are making some noise, that are challenging Budweiser and Anheuser-Busch and all that stuff. Once they start getting big and they're making this noise, I mean, there's all this money that comes in, and they just say, hey, we're gonna like. There's a brewery down in San Diego called Ballast Point. They got bought out for $1 billion. I mean, you're not going to turn down $1 billion. You know what I mean? No matter how good your shit is and how much you love your product that you've created, if someone's offering you $1 billion, you're going to take it. You know, and it's the same with these other, promoters. I mean, Live Nation, if they see you're making some dent on doing something, they're going to come in and buy you right out, or you're just not going to, I mean, think about it. They've got, because of their advances, no musicians are going to like take less, you know what I mean, to go with maybe a lesser promoter. You know, they're going to go with Live Nation, man. I mean, the greatest example was that whole Mr. Bungle thing last year. I don't know if you're aware of that, that whole thing that went on.
Yeah,
right?
They had a couple of shows out in here. They played with like Hyrax and Possessed and all these.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So that's a great example right there. And Mr. Bungle tried as a band. Mike Patton did. They put together these shows. Obviously that was, I believe, Live Nation. And next thing you know, right, they do these pre-sales for like an hour or two. No one buys a ticket. Okay, now all the tickets are on, on StubHub, and now it's, you got scalpers everywhere. So they know, like, you have like this short little time to buy a ticket. If you don't buy it by then, you're totally fucked. And then what they did was all those tickets they were able to sell to people overseas. You know what I mean? That were willing to buy plane tickets and come in and see Mr. Bungle because they weren't going to see him in Europe. And so next thing you know, the whole show's sold out. And their core fans didn't even have a chance to buy the tickets. So what did they do? Okay, they did a good thing. They went ahead and they scheduled an extra couple of shows. Same thing happened though. I mean, some people might have been able to get some tickets, from it. But they, once again, I mean, because of that advance, the artists will just never pass up the advance, man. And I can't necessarily blame them. They need to make their money. So it's sort of like everyone needs to make their money, right? And that's the thing that sucks about the business is everyone needs to make their money. So those bands it's really up to the bands, man. It's up to those bigger bands. A band like Mr. Bungle or whoever, it's up to them to tell, Live Nation to go fuck themselves. Like, one band that does that, I'm not a fan of them really, but it's Pearl Jam. You know what I mean? They're the ones that they've been against Ticketmaster and all these fucking people for years. And they're the ones that literally do not go through, don't go through Ticketmaster. They don't go through Live Nation. They do it on their own. They take a hit for it. But they make enough money where they can, and that's the thing. Bands that will do that are the ones who can afford to take those hits. But most bands can't afford to take the hit, and if someone's coming, with that kind of advance, man, you're just gonna take it. It is what it is, man. I don't know how it's gonna get solved, man. Hopefully some sort of regulation. It's gonna take some sort of government regulation, but we know how that works. Don't hold your breath on that.
Lastly, I think Metallica did the same thing Mr. Bungle did, was they added a bunch of shows onto, like, what is it? Didn't they do like S&M 2 or something, and it got bought out by all the bots, and they added an extra show for the fans. So there are bands that can do that, but they have to have like superpowers, and
Absolutely.
we need to have those bands do it before it's too late.
I think what we need, man, it's like what we're doing now, what you're doing, what we're trying to do with the podcasts is really, it's got to be sort of that grassroots level thing. If you really want underground music to sort of, get to where it once was, it's got to be, through those means. You know what I mean? I mean, it's, but at the same time, it's, like I said, it's, how, like, for instance, a band like yours, man, I mean, how do you guys do it, in terms of when you play your shows? You know what I mean? I mean, in terms of, with your merch and everything, I mean, do a lot of the venues, do they want to take a cut of everything?
No, we don't play venues like that.
Okay, which is smart.
I choose not to play venues like that. Good. And my booking agent knows that. You know what I mean? So, what the venues make money on is obviously beer sales and alcohol, which is, it's fine. That's I'll play that game. I like that game. They make their money. I don't particularly do pre-sales. I refuse to do that too. And we kind of have a system out here, or had. I don't know what's going to happen, next, but we had a system where it was like, we would bring a big band and, like, say, they would bring in us because we can, draw some people or whatever to that specific venue, and the bands wouldn't have to do pre-sales because you had a band, say, like us, that can draw. And that's what it takes too, is like the medium tier bands from that specific area. You know what I mean? Like in Orange County or in LA, you need to have bands like that to do that and say and to say no, because we say no to pre-sale. And so with that, other bands follow suit. But you need to have and I'm not saying we're a big fish, because we're not, but I'm saying you need to have a band like that to do that. You can't have, like, a band that nobody's heard of, saying
Exactly.
that they're not going to do it because they're not going to go anywhere unless they make some noise and use the internet to their advantage.
Yep.
And that's
Great point.
that's what we have done too, is used the internet and not had to put in as much hard work as say other bands, but we get the same results. You know what I mean? And yes, we still tour.
Yeah.
And we still tour, and we still put out records, but we do it on our time. And it also comes down to too is your songwriting, and hopefully we'll get into this, on the episode that we'll do on Aftershocks. But really feel that like, yes, there are like some great bands out there, but 99% of the bands fucking suck. So there's no substance in the songwriting, and I think that's severely lacking in any type of music possible. Pop, rock, country, it's all about the song.
Yep, exactly. Well, yeah, it should be. You know what I mean? It should be about the song. I think, like I said, it depends how people are also, consuming music. And let's put it this way, like music, I mean, in my mind, what I've seen over the years, it's been very devalued. You know what I mean? It's not as...
well, it's a product now. It's
exactly.
always been a product, but now it's more emphasized instead of...
Yes. I mean, like you said, it's always been a product, but there was a point in time where the value of music, because there was that mystique to it too. It wasn't easy to find, right? You said you talked about just technology with the internet. I mean, growing up, we couldn't find that stuff, when I was a kid, and so I had to go and spend $15, $20 on a CD and just take a chance on a band. You know what I mean? I didn't know if it was good or not. I just had to do it because there was no other way for me to hear it. Now, because it is, the market of music is saturated. It's all about how you're going to separate yourself from the freaking pack. You know what I mean? And that's obviously extremely difficult to do. It takes a lot of, it takes a lot of just grunt work. You know what I mean? It takes a real lot of grassroots grunt work. And even if you have a scene, say for instance, like what, your scene that you got down there in Southern California, all it takes is, like you said, one or two of those bigger bands, say in the scene, for a promoter to come and give a certain advance, and they're going to take off. You know what I mean? To get a whole bunch of bands to agree on one thing and one common goal, it's just almost impossible to happen. You know what I mean? So it's really hard to, to get really in the end, the artists control it, right? I mean, you could just tell these guys to go fuck off, but if your band saying, no, we're not going to play that show, fuck this promoter, whatever. But these other two bands are going, well, we'll do it. They're going to pay us whatever. Okay. And then it's done. Whatever you're trying to, point you're trying to prove, it's over, because they'll just say, well, we'll just get these two bands. We don't need you, unless you're like, some real, very innovative, whatever burgeoning band that has a lot of money behind it or something. It's the music business, man, especially, since the whole, it all collapsed with technology back in the late 90s, early 2000s. It's still going through, people are still trying to figure out what to do. You know what I mean? It's still such an open,
it's the Wild West, dude.
It is. Yeah. There you go. Perfect. Exactly. It really is.
And lastly, what I'll say on this is there's always going to be another promoter out there. So like, in the big ones, the cream always rises. So you're always going to have promoters that try and rip off bands, but you also have promoters that are trying to help bands, and that's who you need to focus on.
Yeah. Well, you need to find who they are. Exactly. And those are the ones you need to get behind. Absolutely. I mean, there's so many, promoters, man. That's, that's another whole story. You know what I mean? It's like, it's just, it really comes down to, man, it's like what you're doing right now, man. Just do whatever you feel, right? In your heart, that's the right way to do shit. And just stick to your guns, stick to your principles, and, cross your fingers, and, good things will happen, man. You know what I mean? You guys, like I said, look at your band. You're doing great. Great new record you got out, man. Just you're on the track, man. You just keep going down the path you're going.
Oh, I appreciate it.
Good things are gonna happen for sure, man. No, it's one thing about the business, man. It's like, I think really, like a guy like Bob. Bob's one of the most genuine guys I've ever met in my life, and I think one of the reasons why he has been successful is because of that. He's just a true guy. He doesn't, he's not tempted by any, outside, influences or nothing, man. The guy's just, he is who he is. He's a great guy to everybody. He treats everybody with respect. He's kind. That's why he's been able to, have a good career in music. People do see that, and you get rewarded for that eventually. You
Absolutely.
Really do.
And he takes chances on new bands, which is hugely important. So.
Yep. Exactly.
Mr. Matt, thanks so much for for staying a couple minutes extra and giving me a little bonus round on Popper's Corner. I really, truly appreciate it.
Anytime, Tanner. Thanks so much for having me, buddy.